Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly,
You might want to sit down for this, because Stephen A. Smith just dropped a reality bomb that has the entire WNBA scrambling for cover. And once you understand what he's really saying, it changes everything we thought we knew about the future of women's basketball. We all knew tension was building. We knew locker rooms were divided, and that the energy around the league felt different this season. But nobody expected the Players Association to completely crash out and rip up their own contract this early, thinking they suddenly held all the leverage against league ownership. And yet, that's exactly what happened. What makes this moment so dangerous isn't just the opt-out itself. It's what Stephen A. Smith believes it reveals behind the scenes, that Caitlin Clark has already begun quietly distancing herself from the entire ecosystem. Stephen A. isn't just criticizing the league for poor timing or questionable leadership. He's practically confirming that Clark has made a silent power move. No press conference, no dramatic social media post, no emotional interview. Instead, she simply stepped back. And in professional sports, silence from the biggest star is often louder than any statement. According to Stephen A., Clark has effectively resigned from the drama, and the consequences of that decision could be catastrophic for everyone who believed they could pressure the Golden Goose while still cashing her checks. Let's start with a domino that triggered everything. The WNBA Players Association officially opted out of its collective bargaining agreement 2 years early. In plain English, they tore up their own contract. They looked at packed arenas, chartered private flights, record-breaking television ratings, and unprecedented media attention, and they decided now is the moment to demand a massive pay increase. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. The league is growing faster than ever before. But Stephen A. Smith pointed out the fatal flaw in that thinking. They're demanding a fortune from a league that has only been profitable for a very short period of time, and they're doing it while antagonizing the single biggest reason that revenue exists at all. The union is betting that the viewership surge is permanent, that fans will stick around no matter what, and that Caitlin Clark's presence is just a bonus rather than the foundation. That is a dangerous gamble, because if that assumption is wrong, the entire house of cards collapses. Stephen A. argues that while the union was shouting about equity and leverage, Caitlin Clark made a move that spoke louder than any protest ever could. She rejected Unrivaled. Unrivaled, for those who don't know, is the new off-season 3-on-3 league founded by Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, the very veterans who have competed against Clark all season. They reportedly offer her over $1 million for just a few weeks of work, equity in the league, and complete star treatment. Historically, WNBA players have had to play year-round just to survive financially, so the assumption was that Clark would jump at the offer. She didn't. She said no. And Stephen A. Smith sees that decision as a soft resignation. By rejecting Unrivaled, Clark didn't just turn down money. She turned down their ecosystem, their league, and their leverage. Instead of chasing checks, she chose rest, golf, family time, and distance from the noise. It was a silent power move that essentially said, I don't need this, but you absolutely needed me. That's when Stephen A. really went in, calling it the ultimate fumble of the bag. The union and veteran players are demanding revenue sharing and equity, which is fair in theory. But you cannot demand a slice of Caitlin Clark's money while simultaneously allowing her to be targeted on the court, dismissed in the media, and treated like an outsider. We all saw the hard fouls, the side-eye, the Olympic roster omissions, the constant attempts to downplay her impact. Stephen A. argues that jealousy has blinded them to the business reality. You cannot squeeze the golden goose for eggs while also trying to cook it for dinner. And by opting out of the CBA now, they're betting that Clark will just keep absorbing the pressure forever while funding everyone else's salary increases. Here's where the numbers expose everything. The average WNBA player needs a CBA raise to live comfortably without going overseas to exhausting or risky situations. Caitlin Clark does not. With a Nike deal rumored to be worth nearly $30 million, plus endorsements from State Farm, Gatorade, Wilson, and others, her WNBA salary is pocket change, less than 1% of her annual income. Stephen A. hammered this point home relentlessly. If the league locks out, the players don't get paid. Clark still gets paid. Nike doesn't stop cutting checks. The union is acting like they control the ecosystem, but the only person with real leverage is the rookie they've been hazing. And it's not just the players being exposed. League leadership is also getting dragged into the spotlight. Stephen A. echoed criticism that the WNBA leadership may be the worst in sports when it comes to protecting its transition moment. In any other business, if one employee generates a majority of your revenue, you protect them at all costs. Instead, the league allowed a hostile environment to grow around its biggest asset, refusing to step in when the discourse turned toxic. Now they're facing a labor war, while their biggest star is quietly disengaging. If a lockout happens, executives will have to explain to the NBA's board of governors how they fumbled a billion-dollar opportunity because they were afraid to manage personalities. Stephen A.'s final warning was ominous. He said, "We are approaching a breaking point where silence turns into departure. If the union strikes in GameStop, Caitlin Clark won't be the one begging for a deal. She can move into broadcasting. She can play overseas exhibition games for millions. Or she can simply build her brand independently." The resignation becomes real the moment she decides the environment isn't worth it anymore. To understand how we got here, you have to look at the timeline of disrespect. This didn't start in the WNBA. It started before Clark ever played a professional minute. Comments from veterans like Diana Taurasi and Cheryl Swoops set the tone early, creating an atmosphere where every veteran felt empowered to humble the rookie. They tried. They blitzed her, fouled her, face-guarded her full court. And despite all that, she broke records, carried a lottery team to playoffs, and shattered viewership expectations. Instead of celebrating it, the narrative shifted to "we all built this," ignoring the fact that Clark turned the lights on for a global audience. The unrivaled factor makes this even more explosive. That league was designed to keep players in the U.S. during the off-season and generate real money. Clark was the key to their television future. Rumors suggest networks were waiting on her signature before committing to massive broadcast deals. By saying no, Clark didn't just rest her body. She likely cost that league millions in potential revenue. Stephen A. implies this wasn't accidental. Clark understands her value. Withholding her participation proves exactly how much she matters. The union claims they opted out early to reflect the league's transformation, but Stephen A. believes the timing reveals fear. Fear that the hype might fade. Fear that the numbers might plateau. Ironically, by threatening instability, they risk killing momentum entirely. Casual fans who tuned in for Clark won't wait through a lockout. They'll go back to the NBA or NFL and might never return. Stephen A. also addressed the uncomfortable racial and media dynamics fueling the situation. He acknowledged inequities, but emphasized that business follows demand. Just like the NBA marketed Magic and Birds survive, the WNBA must market what sells. Clark sells. Ignoring that reality to chase equal outcomes risks alienating the very partners funding the raises. Finally, Stephen A. touched on mental health. Clark looked emotionally drained by season's end. Constant scrutiny, body language analysis, and controversy take a toll. Stepping away may be preservation, not protest. And that's the scariest part for the league. If Clark realizes she's happier without the WNBA than with it, walking away becomes a real possibility. She already has the money. She already has a platform. The league needs her far more than she needs it. Stephen A. Smith's message is clear. The WNBA is playing chicken with its future, and Caitlin Clark has an eject button. By rejecting Unrivaled, she just showed everyone exactly where her finger is.